Welcome. Little house cleaning. We just completed and adjourned our special board meeting. What we need to do is go through a process as it relates to reopening the special meeting. Do I have a motion to reopen?
Sure, I'll move that we reopen the special board meeting.
And do I have a second?
I'll second. Oh.
All right. By a show of hands, I have approval. And now I need to have a motion to close the special meeting. All right, motion made to close, and do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, by a show of hands, I have approval. Let the record show it was approved unanimously. With that, welcome to our regular board meeting of May 20th, 2024, starting at 6:03. We'd like to call this meeting to order. May I have a roll call, Secretary Pastana?
Ms. Grzymkowski.
Here.
Mr. Dimick.
Here.
Ms. Ryan.
Here.
I am present myself. Ms. Dodd.
Here.
Ms. Cotter.
Here.
And Mr. Wiseman.
Here.
All present and accounted for.
Thank you. We all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I will make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion made to approve the agenda by Member Dimick, seconded by Member Dodd. Any questions, any changes? Seeing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Dimick.
Yes.
Ms. Dodd.
Yes.
Ms. Ryan.
Yes.
Ms. Cotter.
Yes.
Ms. Grzymkowski.
Yes.
I am a yes. Mr. Wiseman.
Yes.
Motion approved.
As we begin this meeting, I would like to thank each and every one of you for attending tonight's Huron Valley School Board of Education meeting. We, as always, welcome our community's input and comments. There's a public comment section that will be available for 15 minutes, which include both action and non-action items during Section 3 of the agenda, and then additional comments will take place during Section 7 of the agenda unless the comments are related to an item that will be voted on. If you have comments or concerns on an agenda or a non-agenda item, please fill out the requested information that's found in the back and return it to Mrs. Cadell over on the side. Participants, as I said, will have 3 minutes to present their comments. This is not a time for us to get into conversation, but to listen to you. And if there is something as it's deemed appropriate, I will turn it over to Dr. Salah, our superintendent, for his attention. I do have a number of citizen participation forms. None of them are on agenda items, but in the practice, even though they are not agenda items, I will allow 15 minutes of comments, and I will call you up. Those that we do not have time for at the beginning of the meeting, we will have an opportunity for you to have public comments towards the end. So once again, I would like to thank each and every one of you that have filled out a form. If there is something that you would like to speak on as it relates to public comments, please pass them on to Mrs. Cadell. Next on the agenda is communication reports, items from the board president. I just have two. These are exciting times. We have graduation coming up at Lakeland. I have a shake of head right here from Mr. Baker here. Graduation at Milford, both on June 2nd. We have graduation at Harbor High School, and we have IA graduation coming up soon. So we're really looking forward to celebrating with our seniors on those important milestones in their lives. At the same time, I do want to recognize an event that happened this weekend, and that was our transportation department participating in what's referred to as the bus rodeo. And once again, first of all, we hosted it. So if you drove around Milford High School, you saw a lot of yellow buses all over the place with our transportation department hosting this event. And I believe every school district in Oakland County participated and brought a team. And once again, I think this is a three-peat that our bus drivers came out on top. Not only did they kind of have home field advantage, but they won it for the third year in a row. So that kind of really reflects the type of people that we are very proud of as part of our district. I think it's important to note that we are one of the few districts that have our own people providing transportation, and I think that's a point of pride. They are ours. They believe in what we do here as a team, and we're all in it together. So congratulations to them. With that, next will be Huron Valley Highlights, Teaching, Learning, Technology, Student Leaders. I'll turn that over to, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Slahn.
And I will turn it over to Ms. Rothler. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Tonight, we would like to recognize the exemplary student leadership within our school community who have taken part in many of our committee meetings to engage in meaningful conversations with central office team and Board of Education members. These students contribute valuable insights and perspectives from each of our 4 high schools. These 4 outstanding individuals have demonstrated exceptional dedication, initiative, and passion in the roles as student leaders. So if I can get Board Secretary Ms. Denise Pastana, along with any of our principals. I've seen Ben up here and Ms. Libby Held. Is Milford or I don't see them. But I will bring them up here so they can introduce these 4 leadership students and give them with their certificates. And I'll take pictures. Yes, ma'am.
So I have the honor of presenting these certificates to these students. They have been invaluable to us on the Teaching, Learning, Technology Committee. They're always honest, and they give us great feedback, and we are very appreciative of the time that they spent. They are all busy, busy students with lots of extracurriculars, and so please know that what you do is really important, and we appreciate the feedback. All right, so the first one is Paul Baker from Lakeland High School. You want to come up, Paul? There's a certificate, and then I'm going to give you one of our coins. It talks about the academics, athletics, and arts, and it talks about inspiring and building futures one student at a time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. Let me. I just want to shake your hand.
Oh, my.
Congratulations. All right. Next one is Priyanka Patel. There she is. Priyanka is from Milford High School, and we appreciate all of your time and dedication, Priyanka. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next one is Rowan. Is it Einhart? Enyart. Sorry, Rowan. Come on up from the International Academy. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. There's your coin. And then from Harbor High School, Michael McNally. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. All right, and then I don't know if if anybody has comments or questions.
Yes, Ms. Cotter?
Yes, I sit on the same committee with Mrs. Pastana, and I just want the students to know that when we go through all of that information that comes out about instruction for our students, the best feedback we get is from the kids themselves. They really tell us how it is, and they've been an essential part of our direction with instruction for our kids. So I just want to say thank you to them and have a good time next year.
Any other comments? Yes, Amy?
So we always have leadership at TLT, and I want to know, how do we get students at the Finance and Operations Committee? I'm jealous that you get to be with these 4 amazing students. your feedback that you give, the way in which you represent your individual schools. It's really inspiring. So thank you very much for not only being willing to be leaders in your schools, but then to bring that and to provide the feedback to the board. It's really greatly appreciated.
Any other comments? Yes, Jacob?
Just kind of echoing what Lindsay said, I'm also on the TLT committee, and it is really beneficial to us as board members to hear from you guys. And I know you guys have to give a lot of extra time to attend the board meetings and the committee meetings and all of that. And we bribe them. Ms. Pastana bakes every meeting.
So that's the reason why they come, is for your baked goods? Interesting. I do want to say thank you on behalf of the board, the rest of the Board of Education. The amount of time and the input that you provide to us is invaluable and priceless. And without your input, you're why we're here, all right? And for you to represent the students of Huron Valley is extraordinarily important, and we're very grateful to all of you. So thank you again. I also, as I mentioned, know that this is an exciting week, and all of you get up really early. So if you certainly are excused if you'd like. You can stay, but you're also excused too. So
Can we take a quick picture with the board?
yes, and then they could.
Yep, thank you.
Then they could excuse themselves if they'd like.
Perfect.
That's all good.
And we'll make sure we have some student leaders on finance and operations next year. We'll show them.
We need DECA.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next, school presentations, Dr. Salah.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening, we have Harbor High School with us, and I'm going to introduce the proud principal of Harbor High School. That's Mr. Ben Dowker. Let's give it up for Mr. Dowker.
Thank you. I get to play the role of a proud administrator today. I'm just introducing all these amazing folks with me and then standing on the side and make sure the slides go well. I think them speaking will do more than whatever I can say right now, but I am extremely proud of these three folks, and I want to give a shout out to Miss Emily here with us tonight. She's our valedictorian, so she's getting a little taste of public speaking this evening and then a much bigger taste in a couple weeks. So if I could call up to the podium Gabe Southwell, Michael McNally, and Emily Ibarra. These folks are the core of our leadership group, and at Harbor High School this is organized a little bit differently, which I'm going to let Gabe talk a little bit about. But they volunteer their time to this organization in our building and dedicate their time and efforts and time outside of school to get these things done. Without further ado, Gabe Southwell.
Thank you. I'm a little nervous. Never spoke to a board before. But yeah, Harbor's Leadership Club is organized so that we meet once a week, every week for about an hour, and we're given a list of objectives that we need to complete during a set amount of time, and that could be community building exercises, or that could be school building exercises. And to be in that club, you have to have all passing grades, and you need to exude a positive behavior that is amicable to working in a group like that. So being somebody that can speak well to other people, be intercommunicative, and sort of work well with others in that setting is important to creating those community bonds and help create effective school programs. Also, being somebody who's able to balance your schoolwork and leadership life is really important. Sometimes you can teeter back on either one of those, and to be on top of both of them, although it's a hard thing to do, is really fulfilling in the end for people who are in leadership. I had the honor of being able to help create a school motto for Harbor. One of our speakers, Michael McNally, and another student, Vincent Hernandez, wrote the school motto, "Honor the journey, embrace the struggle, and live the results." We thought that encapsulated what Harbor is, because a lot of kids come in struggling, going through some form of traumatic or like a hard time in their lives, right? And for whatever reason, it sets them back in their schoolwork. So being in a environment where there's more resources for you can help you move along that way. Embracing the struggle means to work incredibly hard to fulfill your goals, because even though Harbor has a lot of resources that are helpful for the people that go there, the only thing that they can't provide you is your own hard work and perseverance. And the culmination of those two is living the results, finally graduating, going to secondary school, and eventually finding a career that can fit you as a person and that you can thrive in. All right, thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak up here. In the month of November, we did a community sharing food drive. So we collected cans and non-perishable foods for holiday meals for families who were struggling during that time. And we got more than 200 food items, so everyone in the school had helped donate to the community sharing. And I think that just like brought us all together. Just doing food drives like that, it really gets people involved in the school work.
Now, Emily, before I let you stop talking about the slide, I think you should talk about that bottom right picture.
Okay. So in the bottom right picture is a photo we took after I got the honor to pie our math teacher in the face. There is a video also, if anyone wants to see it. It's very funny. He deserved it. Let me just say that. Just some of the regular school activities that we have for leadership is the bulletin boards in our school. We decorate them and just put the agenda items on there. We have our senior quotes up on the bulletin boards right now, and then senior pictures. We do video announcements at least once a month, so we can just, for that month, we tell everyone what's going on just to inform them, and all the teachers show them in the classes. We do Spirit Weeks, at least 2 or 3 a year, and we get everyone in leadership to like put their input in, and we pick which ones that we like the best or anything. The Harbor High School sign is the sign out front. We pick 2 people to go out there and change it every week and just let everyone know what's going on. And then our Harbor Closet, we have people donate clothes, and we have this room where if somebody is struggling and they need clothing items, they can just go in there and get whatever they need. I think that helps a lot of kids in the school, like without putting them out there or anything. It just can be a private thing for kids who are in need.
Through the months of January and June, we will be collecting bottles for various charities. We're going through Tyler's Bottle Service to donate. We donate to Tyler's Bottle Service in order for them to have a complete brain fart.
They take a portion of
Yeah, they take a portion of the money we make from the bottles for their own business, and then we get half of that back, which we've donated to the Humane Society, which we also made bandanas and cat toys for. Currently, we are raising money for the Oakland County Foster Closet. It's something that we all believe very strongly in.
Up there in that top right, can you describe that picture?
Oh, that one? So, that is all of Harbor student leadership. We are in the back of Mrs. Stokes' classroom, and we're holding up a check that we made that depicts how much we made to donate to the Humane Society. And up there we also have a dog named Rosie. Yeah. So next year we are going to be working on Harbor's leadership recruitment and retention for people who are in leadership, trying to keep them around for longer amounts of time. Near the end of the year, it starts to fall off a little bit just because kids are tired. They lose a little bit of initiative. They're just not in it for the long haul a lot of the time. Also for next year, we'll be looking for student ambassadors to kind of help out new kids, show them around the school so that we don't we kind of just throw them in the deep end usually, but we're going to try to fix that next year. Any questions can be deferred to Mrs. Stokes. She's our captain, our leader of leadership, the best leader in the school district. She also loves speaking in front of crowds. It's her favorite thing in the world.
Anyone have any questions? Yeah. Yes, Laura.
Harbor really is an extraordinary place, and you are extraordinary leaders for serving and bringing community together. This is the first year I've heard about community service projects. They maybe have happened before, but it really is a great way to bring people together. If one wanted to donate some bottles and cans here at the end of your bottle and can drive, what should someone do? Where should they bring them, etc.?
You can bring them to the front office, and then there's a little box in the corridor to the right where you can drop off the cans.
Great, thank you.
I think you should assign that to your principal, and he could do door to door and pick them up.
Oh, it's a good idea.
Anyone else have any questions? Yes, Lindsay?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment, and I appreciate all that our Harbor High students do. But I want the students to know who have never publicly spoke to before. The three of you were eloquent. I enjoyed your conversation and the detail that you were able to present. So thank you, and keep up your good work.
Thank you very much. And just like the other leadership group,
I just want to say one thing, and I know McNally did a really good job of doing it, but we wouldn't be able to do this work without Nicole Stokes, our leadership teacher. So a big round of applause for her, please. Thank you.
thank you very much. And just like the other group, you can stay for the rest of the meeting or you're excused. Don't be shy. Next is superintendent's communication. Dr. Salah?
Yeah, I just want to thank our Harbor kids. They really did an awesome job. And Ms. Cartwright, appreciate you lifting that. Public speaking can be intimidating. Mm-hmm. And boy, they were really natural and just, they're awesome kids. They did a great job. I want to congratulate our graduates. Believe it or not, this is the last week for seniors. I don't even understand where the year goes. It has absolutely flown by. The leadership kids that we had at the beginning are really, really special kids. We've got to know them over the course of the year. They've attended a number of our teaching learning technology meetings, and just listening to them talk about their future plans and their experience in the Huron Valley schools is just extraordinarily positive. I'm really proud of them. I know they're going to go on to do fantastic things, and graduation is just a really exciting time of year, so I'm really excited for our students. So congratulations to our graduates. I don't believe we have another meeting until after they walk across the stage, so it's one of our last opportunities to do that. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the community as a whole for the successful passage of the May 2024 bond proposal. I know kids are going to benefit for decades to come. Tremendous impact and just extraordinarily thankful to our community. So thank you to the Huron Valley voters for supporting the schools. Finally, this evening, Mr. President and members of the board, I wanted to spend just a couple minutes because on the agenda, under new business, we have the 2024-2025 budget work session. And for the benefit of the community, there have been a lot of conversations over the last 2 months or so related to the budgeting process and class size. So I want to just spend a few minutes and walk through and synthesize sort of the breadth and scope of the conversations that have taken place over the last 2 months. And I think for some context to begin this conversation, the budgeting process in the state of Michigan is somewhat illogical, and it can be somewhat confusing to follow. So I think it's important to provide a little context. So in Michigan, every board of education across all 500-plus school districts in the state of Michigan are required to adopt a budget by June 30th of the said calendar year. They have to do that without knowing two of the primary pieces of information related to what makes up our budget. The first item being the foundation allowance. So the state of Michigan establishes the foundation allowance, whether it's higher or lower, every single year. And that process is the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the governor's office have to come together, they have to collaborate, and they have to decide based on the finances of the preceding year whether or not there are dollars to dedicate to K-12 education. The board will not know that most typically until after June 30th, but yet they are required to adopt a balanced budget. The second factor is enrollment. We see students come and go between June 12th, the last day of school, and after August, after Labor Day, the first day of school. Sometimes there are big ups and little downs and vice versa. And you can see students at certain grade levels increase, but others decrease. And so it's sort of this complicated balancing act that we're monitoring throughout the summer to make certain that when you adopt a budget, that enrollment matches staffing, the number of teachers that we hire to serve children in the district. So the process is complex, and it's oftentimes based on details that are unknown. But regardless, the law requires that the board adopt a budget by June 30th. So the most recent conversations with the board have been around class size analysis, specifically an effort to try and mitigate classes that have 30 or 31 students for more than one consecutive school year. So we've done some analysis, we've had conversations, we've looked at all of the data related to class sizes across all of our buildings and classes at all 8 of our elementary schools. So for some context, we have 140 total classrooms at the elementary level. And that goes from junior kindergarten all the way to grade 5. Contractual class sizes for everybody who's out there, you can look this up online. Our contracts are all publicly available for anyone that wants to review our contracts. So the contractual class sizes at the junior kindergarten level are 20. You can have a maximum of 20 students. Kindergarten is 27, first grade is 29, second grade is 30, and grades 3 through 5 is 31. And the reason why that's important is because enrollment drives staffing. So you take the number of students you have, you divide that by the number of employees you need to deliver the educational experience, and that's how you know how many people you need to hire. So that's a really important data point. Now, our actual class sizes, that was the contractual class sizes. Our actual average class size, I want to share that with the listening audience as well, because they are nowhere near the numbers I just read to you. Our actual class size at the junior kindergarten, while the contract says 20, our actual class size for the 23-24 school year was 15.4. At the kindergarten level, the max class size is 27. Our actual class size for the 23-24 school year is 21.9. In grade 1, the max class size is 29, and our average class size was 25.2. In grade 2, the max class size is 30, and our average class size was 24.2. In grade 4, the max class size is 31. I'm sorry, did I say grade 3? Grade 3 is 31, and our average was 24.2. Fourth grade, our average was 24.3, and fifth grade, our average was 25. So in each instance, we were 5 to 7 students below class size max based on the contract. However, now that being said, because we do not do split classrooms, meaning we don't combine first and second grade in the same class and keep the class size smaller to save on hiring additional folks, that causes us to have some outliers. So the classrooms that we paid particular attention to when looking at this analysis, of the 140 classrooms that we serve at the elementary, we had 6 total classrooms that had 30 or 31 students. So 6 of 140. So while the averages were very low, we did have 6. 2 of those classrooms were at Johnson Elementary School in the 3rd grade. We had 2 classrooms at Spring Mills Elementary School in the 3rd grade. At Heritage, we had 1 class in the 5th grade that was at 30, and at Oxbow, we had 1 class in the 4th grade that was at 30. So the conversation that we've been exploring with board and administration in preparation for the upcoming budget is what would it cost for us? How could we prevent students that were in one of those 6 classrooms that had 30 from having 30 or 31 in the subsequent school year, so that they wouldn't have 30 or 31 for 2 consecutive school years. And so what we've done is some analysis, and we're going to be able to, within this budgeting process, so the budget you're going to see this evening and that we're going to be eventually asking you to adopt, has additional teacher allocation to ensure that those 3 grade levels and buildings will not exceed 30 students in those sections. And so while we had 6, and it's only 3, we only need 3 additional teachers to offset that cost. And the reason is because if you have, for example, let's say you have 30 and 30 at Johnson, by adding 1 teacher, it takes all 3 sections down to 20. And so you only need 1 teacher to offset that class size at 30 or more. So this is really more so for a point for information. I mean, we've had a number of these conversations at our board subcommittee meetings, but I want the listening audience to have the benefit of all of those conversations. I think it's important for the community to know that, you know, we've been looking at this really for the better part of the last 2 years to try to figure out how we adopt a balanced budget without knowing what the state's going to give us, without knowing how many students are going to show up in the fall, while still being fiscally prudent so that we can have a balanced budget and provide all the programs for students that we currently provide. And it's complicated, it's a balancing act, and we're just trying to do what's the right thing all the way across the board. So, Mr. President, that's all I have this evening. I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that that will be a part of your budget conversation when Mr. Van Gotham presents this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation and your communication. Next, student leadership. I know we recognize student leaders, so I believe that's been checked off, correct? All right. Association communication. Jennifer?
Yeah, you gave them permission to leave. Good evening. In December of 2022, the Board of Education created a fine arts teacher leader position, as the need for this position had been a discussion in the district for many years. This school year has seen the implementation of this position, with Megan Weeks filling the role.
I felt it was important to share with all of you the impact that this position has had across the district for the past 12 months. We pride ourselves in being a AAA district: academics, athletics, and the arts. This fine arts position ensures that we are living into this important Huron Valley core. This teacher leader role has given a collective voice to the arts. In the past, our fine arts educators sometimes felt like lone islands of choir, visual arts, instrumental music, elementary music, and theater. These educators didn't always feel like they knew where to go for those little things that they needed, and sometimes those little things piled up between cohort time and professional development days. Now, with Megan as the teacher leader, all of these educators know exactly who to contact with their questions and concerns. Megan is making sure they are heard, and they know they have a pivotal staff member working with our teaching, learning, and technology department who's advocating just for them. Just like the athletic department oversees all of our HVS athletics, this fine arts teacher leader position looks at the arts as a whole in our district. Megan was also part of our district strategic plan, bringing the fine arts needs to that discussion and expressing her thoughts through that fine arts lens. Our fine arts educators have all had the opportunity to talk with Megan this year about their concerns and their needs. Megan spent time in our elementary buildings, introducing herself and sharing the vision of this role with the educators. Our secondary cohort, they also met with Megan so that they now know they have an advocate who understands the arts and is in partnership with TLT. Already this year, this position has made a huge impact. Megan has been assessing curricular needs to determine if our current equipment requires an update to match the curriculum standards. With our educators, she also facilitates these concerns and helps to determine whether those items need to be fixed or whether they need to be replaced. Our theaters have made a significant upgrade this year, as many of you have seen when you've gone to the shows. And that impact is going to directly connect to our students as they build sets, choreograph our musicals, and light up our choir concerts. In the future, Megan shared with me that she's looking to partner more with community organizations such as the Shack and Huron Valley Council for the Arts to create and grow partnerships to support and highlight HVS arts. And now that the bond is passed, this teacher leader role will help navigate the consolidation of the middle schools to ensure that the arts are heard, considered, and those programs can continue to grow and offer so many opportunities for all of our students. In conclusion, Megan is our fine arts teacher leader, and this new position is a central liaison who listens to our fine arts educators as that whole group and can think big picture about what our district needs. She deeply cares about the arts in our district, and this new position will ensure that our Huron Valley future includes a strong fine arts department for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Board correspondence. Any board correspondence, Secretary Pestana?
None tonight.
Treasurer's report.
I will defer that to
Grzękowski?
the budget meeting later.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is reports from the board committee. I'll start off with the executive committee. The committee meeting was held on May 14th, 2024 at 12:30 p.m. at the Huron Valley Schools Administration Office. The meeting was called to order at 12:35 p.m. Present were myself, along with members Pestana and Dodd, Dr. Salah, Jeffrey Van Gothen, and Heather Cadell. There were public comments. JoJo Kine discussed the mandatory reporting policies of the district. She discussed safety training referencing Enrolled Bill 66. She inquired regarding the district policies being posted for the public on our website as well as training. Vice President Dodd emailed a link to access the board policies directly to Ms. Kine. Dr. Salah shared the district's ongoing commitment to uphold the district and state procedures for employee background checks. He commented that Enrolled Bill 66 from state legislature will include procedures by the Michigan Department of Education that will be rolled out on a statewide basis once completed. Dr. Salah also referenced aspects of the state-mandated health curriculum taught at all levels of the district, elementary and secondary. Also, another comment was made by Jennifer Pico. Is that correct? Close enough? All right, we'll get it better next time. Discuss mandatory reporting policies of the district. She encouraged the district to have social workers present for students who need support. Dr. Salah thanked her for her comments and shared that social work support is available for any student that would like that support. He also shared that the district desires to ensure that conversations occur at student or parent request, as parents may like to discuss sensitive issues with their children without school involvement. Also discussed at that meeting was the regular agenda that's before you today. In addition, school safety and security, which is an item on our agenda every time we meet, shared that Recon is wrapping up its building visits. These visits are an opportunity to look at safety procedures and protocols that are being followed throughout our buildings. A written report with their findings will be shared with the entire board once these visits are completed. We also discussed the proposed 24-25 board meeting calendar. The committee went over proposed dates for the regular board meetings for the 24-25 school year. The meeting calendar will be shared in board notes with the entire board. In addition to that, Oakland Schools Board of Education election, a discussion was held about the candidate forum that was held on May 7th at Oakland Schools Board, and 3 of the 4 candidates participated: Carol Finkelstein, Mark Katz, and Samuel Scott. The committee suggested that Laura Dodd act as our designated elector to cast a vote on behalf of the board at the June 3rd, 2024 board meeting. In addition to that, the 24-25 budget was discussed. Jeffrey Van Gothen shared a presentation that will be presented tonight at our budget work session. He noted that the budget is still an estimate, as the state has not determined the foundation allowance for the schools for the 24-25 school year. The foundation allowance is based on pupil count, which will not be determined until the fall. Dr. Salah shared his congratulations with the board for passing of the most recent bond issue. He shared that this bond will have a positive impact, and it aligns with our strategic plan committee work that transpired over the past 2 years. We adjourned at 2:05, and our next meeting will be held on June 4th, 2024 at 12:30 p.m. at the administrative offices. With that, TLT committee.
TLT met on May 6th. We met at Milford High School. Meeting was called to order at 4:31. Present were myself, Mr. Dimick, Ms. Cotter, Mr. DeVernier, Dr. Salah, Mr. Lindberg, Ms. Bjorkman, Ms. Thompson, Mr. Endicott, Dr. Nemeth, Ms. Miska, and Ms. Chastain. There was no public comment. Under our regular agenda items, we had a gifted and talented update. Dr. Nemeth presented an overview of the continuing work of the district's gifted and talented program. A team of educators have focused on programming for students in grades 3 through 5 with both in-school and after-school activities. The framework includes a process for identification of both Tier 1 plus as well as gifted students. A parent information night was held with over 40 parents in attendance, and the committee is developing plans for the 24-25 school year, which includes partnerships with high school students. We talked about the grades 3 through 5 word study. Huron Valley continues to update curriculum in alignment with current state standards and to adopt resources to support these standards and effective practices. A group of educators completed a field study of resources and are recommending the spellography resource. Spellography includes a 4-part series of texts and workbooks that the students will use in grades 3 through 5. These resources and professional learning are supported by the Section 35J Early Literacy Professional Development Curriculum and Supplies Grant. The TLT committee supported this exhibit appearing under new business at tonight's meeting. You will hear more about it. Summer extension update. Over 1,100 students were identified for eligibility for the summer extension, and invitations were sent to those families over the past few weeks. At this time, 271 students in grades K through 5 and an additional 80 students in grades 6 through 8 have been enrolled. The summer extension will run 2 3-week sessions beginning on July 9th. Safety and security, the technology services team continues to provide training and professional learning for district staff through phishing campaigns. We talked about the bond initiative. It hadn't passed at that point. So we said, get out there and vote. There was no report of student leadership. And the other was Mr. Tavernier distributed the final set of administrative guidelines for the 2000 series. We adjourned at 5:26, and our next meeting is tomorrow, May 21st at 4:30.
Thank you very much, Secretary Pastana. Finance and Operations, Treasurer Grzekowski.
Finance and Operations met on Wednesday, May 15th. We started our meeting at 8:05 at the Administration Building. Present were Mr. Wiseman, myself, Ms. Ryan, Dr. Salah, Mr. Van Gotham, Mr. Reeby, Ms. Kerrigan, Ms. Maruskin, Ms. Timberlake, and Mr. Maxwell from Clark Construction, and Mr. Weinrock from TMP. We did not have any public comment. Review of the minutes. The previous meeting of 5:1 minutes were included in the board notes from 5:17. We looked at, there was no consent agenda. We had 2 unfinished business that will come before us tonight. The 2024-2025 Oakland Schools ISD budget. The committee had no further questions on the budget, and the resolution to support the budget will be looked at this evening. Spring Mills ASD Playground, the committee has had no further questions regarding the quote from Snyder Recreation to supply the new playground structure at Spring Mills Elementary in the amount of $69,955 with a 12% contingency for a total of $78,350. The administration is seeking approval at tonight's meeting. This project is funded from the 2023 Capital Projects Fund. We had several new business. I apologize, we had one new business, which was the 2024-2025 budget work session. Mr. Van Gotham presented and summarized and we discussed in detail the proposed 2024-2025 general fund budget. He answered questions from the committee, clarifying and backing up the reasoning behind the estimates. The budget is still an estimate, as the state has not determined the foundation allowance for schools for 2024-2025. The pupil count used to determine the foundation allowance revenue will not be determined until October of 2024. However, the board is required to approve this balanced budget by June 30th and plans to approve the budget on June 10th of 2024. We did have some safety and security updates. Recon Management is wrapping up their visits with only one school remaining at that time. Preliminary reports should be available in the coming weeks, and they will be shared with the board. We did receive bond construction updates from Clark Construction. We were provided with remaining contingencies and timelines for the bid packs that are currently open, including our summer construction timelines. The committee asked for a timeline of the remaining work that needs to be completed for the 2019 bond construction, along with processes that will follow for our 2 middle schools, including the start of a representative list of who will be involved in the decision-making. We looked at the general fund budget to actual as of May 13th. The committee reviewed this budget to actual for the general fund. There were no concerns. Mr. Van Gotham explained that the pupil services function is trending a bit higher than what was budgeted. He's working with student support services allocations versus the spend and the impact it has, along with how we can do better when it's properly funded. This function change could have an impact on the 3rd and 4th quarter budget amendments for fiscal year 24 and allocations for 2024-25's original budget. We also discussed the water line resolution with Highland Township. Dr. Salah and Mr. Van Gotham continue to work with council alongside Highland Township and will move forward once the deal with the township water is finalized with the development company. Upon receipt of said agreement, we will bring it to the Finance and Operations Committee. This is a very exciting, this is one of the very exciting projects that are going on right now to have really great water at Highland Elementary. Administrative guidelines for finance and operations. The committee received the proposed 8,000 series administrative guidelines. We will review and answer any questions at the June 5th finance and operations meeting. We do have some future discussion items. At our June 5th F&O meeting, we are going to be looking at the timeline for the remaining work in 2019, along with the 2024 bond processes to coordinate a committee and define its scope. In addition, Dr. Salah is to report on special education identification rates by building. The meeting adjourned at 9:42 a.m. Our next meeting is, as I said earlier, June 5th, 2024, at 8 a.m. I hope to see you there.
Great, thank you. Communications, marketing, and legislative.
We have not had a meeting since our last board meeting, so I have no report. Our next meeting will be May 21st, tomorrow, 2:30 at the admin building.
Great, thank you. Next, we have public comments. I had made mention that we have two sections of public comments. One is primarily for agenda items. Looking at what I have in front of me, they're all as it relates to one specific topic, and that is Spring Mills. So what I think I'm going to do is allow this period of time for everyone who has filled out a citizens participation form to provide us with public comments. As I said before, they're limited to 3 minutes. I will tell you that even before we have these public comments, I want to say, again, thank you for your comments. And in anticipation of your comments, even though we cannot comment, nor do we use this time to make comments on any specific allegations nor the investigation, I will tell you that we as a board take all these allegations seriously and have been following all school policies and procedures. Please be assured that the safety of our students and staff remains our top priority. In addition to that, on behalf of myself and the rest of the school board, I would like to make a couple of comments that I think are appropriate for all of us. But please be assured on a personal note that as a Board of Education member and as a grandfather of 4 grandchildren that attend our other elementary schools in our district, I hear you and we hear you. We expect all staff members' behavior to align with policies, protocols, and standards of conduct, and any action that endangers our students will not be tolerated. We have high expectations of all staff focused on the health and safety of all of our students. We all care deeply for all of our students in our community. In situations where we hear students are involved or impacted, the district takes immediate steps to protect their privacy while providing support and resources as needed and requested. Please, if you or anyone you know needs additional support, this is coming from all of us, please contact our student support team at 248-684-8251. We are continuing to work with law enforcement as it relates to this investigation, and we are also conducting our own internal investigation. So this is on behalf of not only myself, but the entire Board of Education. We hear you, and we are working through this. So with that, I'm going to ask JoJo Kine be the first person to come up, with Lindsay Tobin second. If you'll state your name, JoJo, and address and the school district. You have 3 minutes, and as I said before, we're here to listen, and this is not a time for us to get into a dialogue, but I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. My name is JoJo Kind. I live in the HBS district in Highland. I stand up here today. Thank you for saying some of those things, but a little late. I stand up here today a little more angry and concerned than I was at the last meeting. What are you guys doing? Enough with the I'm not able to comment due to an investigation. What I have stood here before you asking has nothing to do with this open investigation. I'm screaming for resources for our students and for your staff. I'm screaming for you to go through your policies and tighten up your hiring process. I can't sit here any longer and watch you guys point fingers. Where is that army that you claimed you would send for our students, Dr. Sala? So far, it's standing behind me. It's these parents and the ones that can't be here. We want your support, waiting for you to support our children in the way the schools need to. School board, please do your job. Don't sit quietly and wait for the prosecution to get drawn out. Send out resources to parents, go over your policies, train your staff. You hold these positions because the public elected you. Do not forget to serve the public and to serve the children. And why can't we talk about this? Why is it inappropriate to equip our staff with materials that raise awareness and have concrete tools to use? Do you really think that this kind of thing wouldn't happen here? Wake up. It's here. It's been here. It's in their schools, clubs, organizations, sports, in their homes. It's here. It's everywhere. And when you finally let that sink in, we can move forward and provide resources for all of our staffs and families to utilize. Create a safe environment and a healthy space for everyone. Truly be inclusive like you preach. Truly show that you care about our community. Reassure us parents that you're actively looking into all of these policies, making sure you do what you can to tighten up these cracks that these predators can get through. Actions speak louder than words, and so far we see and hear nothing. You have created this storm by not providing resources and assuring us that you're using your power to change Huron Valley's policies and get your full HVS staff trained, not just educators. None of which these conversations that could be had would incriminate this investigation. You can't talk about anything because it's under investigation, which assures us that it's not being talked about amongst the administration, and that's very scary, as well as what appears to be scare tactics coming from the top boards and from our staff to the parents and advocates. I sent an email to each board member discussing to meet and work together, asking them. I was only responded by the president of the board, who CC'd every other member, explaining to the district that they could not comment because it was under investigation. I'm sorry, are your policies under investigation? I'm a bit confused here. That to me showed you sending a message to every other parent and board member to not respond to me. Same goes for Spring Mill staff, fearing their job if they talk to a parent advocate. I have volunteered in the school weekly for over a year, and the events that transpired on Friday made us feel like we're the criminals. So please
Thank
stop reacting and start acting.
Thank you. Lindsay Tobin, followed by Erica. Erica would be next after Lindsay.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay. I'm here today as a pediatric nurse and concerned parent. I speak on behalf of Spring Mills elementary student victims, both those who have spoken up and those who are still finding their voices, as well as the students who witnessed the sexual abuse of others at the hand of a substitute teacher. Where is the immediate restoration for the victims and the prevention of such incidents in the future? These kids have suffered trauma. I urge you to consider the emotional and mental well-being of the children as your top priority. The kids are talking about this at recess. They're attempting to guide each other. There are still children in class afraid to speak up. Where are the professionals empowering them and guiding them in class? Not pushing it off on the parents who don't know how to talk about it. Not the one social worker in the school. Not the principal. Where are the professionals coming in that the kids don't even know who they can come out in groups together to be empowered? So, as you said, here's a number to call. Don't worry about the number. I'm here to say all the kids at Spring Mills Elementary need additional support now. Okay? I'm a mandatory reporter myself. Sexual abuse is real. If it was a school shooting, we'd have droves of people in there, whether there was an investigation or not. Come on, guys, do better as parents, please. It's heartbreaking, and they're terrified. One child said to me, I said, why didn't you speak up? Why do you think the other kids aren't speaking up? And they said, probably because they're scared, like I was. They're there. There's many, many more that you are not even aware of. Thank you.
Erica, and then Vicki McDonald.
I'm probably not even going to follow my speech. As you know, my daughter was touched by Mr. Doherty, your third-party Huron. Somebody that you should have known touched children years ago. You say the children can go to the principal, to the counselor. There's a social worker at the school. She knew. She knew 1 year ago. She fed my child to a monster. Your principal that you will not let go, our children have to look at her every day. They have to sit in the class that they were touched in every day. My daughter had her first panic attack during school. Miss Bentley is the one who walked up to her and tried to talk to her. Do you think my daughter's going to talk to Miss Bentley when Miss Bentley took that man's hands and put them on her? Do you think she's going to talk to Mattingly when Mattingly did the same thing? These children aren't going to speak to any of you because you all let them down, every single one of you. The second you knew that Bentley and Mattingly, and you have proof because you have the email. The second you found out about it, they should have been out. My daughter shouldn't be looking at the police car outside the school and saying, Mommy, why are they protecting the adults when they wouldn't protect me? Why is my daughter afraid to go to school every morning? The only place she feels safe is before school daycare because there's numerous adults in there. She has someone to talk to. If I didn't get in trouble with CPS or anybody that you guys would decide, none of my kids would be going to school, not even my high school, who is a straight A, and he is disappointed in every single one of you. Every one of you. Where are the counselors that they can talk to? Why aren't they in the schools talking to our children? Why are these kids afraid to come out? I know numerous parents that are afraid to come out because of the way you guys are treating us. Volunteers being asked to stop and leave over a bracelet. Be a voice for the children. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with educational literature? None of you know what to do. None of you know who to go to. How is a 9-year-old child going to know where to go? You all disgust me, every one of you.
Vicki, Courtney is after Vicki.
My name is Vicki McDonald. I live in Highland. I am literally crushed. I have been an active volunteer at Spring Mills for more than 20 years. More than anybody else in that school except for Mrs. Brenningham. She's been longer than me, but that's it. 4 of the 5 of my children went through Spring Mills, and now I have 4 grandchildren that are currently attending Spring Mills. On Friday, I received a phone call from this Huron Valley Schools stating because I put material in the teacher's lounge and I would not sit down with Mrs. Bentley immediately in that morning or make an appointment later on in the day, I was no longer allowed to be a volunteer in the school. I am sorry, but I am not a child who is sent down to the principal's office. That same principal who would not respond to anybody and now I need to be confronted over a false accusation. I had nothing to do with the papers being put in the teacher's lounge, none, which I don't think there was anything wrong with the papers anyways. I am being singled out by something I did not do. I will not sit across the desk from Mrs. Bentley, a mandatory reporter who did not do her job last year, 15 months ago. You could have avoided the growing list of police reports currently due on this employee. I am now being punished and no longer to be able to volunteer within the school. I am ashamed of Spring Mills. My grandchildren loved Mrs. Endicott when they had her. They really did. For her to come into the teacher's lounge Friday morning and create a scene in front of my children is totally unacceptable. She harshly grabbed papers demanding her opinion. The material was loud and clear, directly on, it was unacceptable. 1 foot away from my autistic 6-year-old grandchild. He actually went like this. That is not acceptable. Mrs. Endicott was unacceptable. There was 3 people. Oh, and one of Mr. D's victims was right there too. That's unacceptable. There was 3 adults in that room with a gladly respectful conversation to remove the material. Instead, more of the true colors from the staff and administration showing through. We see you, and we are ashamed of Spring Mills. That breaks my heart. I've been there for 20 years. Words were put in my mouth that I thought all the teachers knew. I never said that. I said, I don't know who knows. I do know that Mrs. Bentley knew and Mrs. Manningly knew. My granddaughter spoke to both of them, and nothing was done 15 months ago. An email was sent from my daughter to there 15 months ago. We need to do better. We need to stop being silent.
What's the name? Courtney, Courtney Bender and Jennifer Pico.
Good evening. My name is Courtney Bender. I am a Spring Mills parent for the past 3 years. My son started in junior kindergarten and is now in 1st grade. I am a school of choice parent. My home district is Holly, and I have chosen to send my son to Spring Mills. I love Spring Mills. Sorry, this is really hard. I moved my son from a private Catholic school to Spring Mills because of its reputation. I love that school. I am on the PTA board. I am an active volunteer. I am a loud and proud Spring Mills mom. I was until last week. The blatant disregard and disrespect shown to us parents and our children over these last few weeks is disgusting. It is our job as parents to worry about our children every second of every day. During the school year, we as parents entrust you with the lives and the safety of our children between the hours of 9 and 4, Monday through Friday. At least 40 hours a week, I send my son to Spring Mills with the expectation that he is safe. Safe from being hurt on the playground, safe from bullies, and safe from pedophiles. It is your literal job to keep my kid and all kids of that school safe, and you have failed. Why are you choosing to protect a pedophile over protecting the 400 plus students that go to that school that are entrusted into your care? Why is it that I had to ask my 7-year-old son if that man touched him inappropriately? Why is it that you care so deeply about protecting staff that failed at their jobs? We are tired. We are tired of the excuses. We are tired of the cover-ups. We are tired of the lies. Why can't you own up to your mistakes? That's what we teach our kids, right? If you make a mistake, own up to it. Why can't you guys do the same? Just piggybacking off what JoJo said, why can't we have classes or something teaching good touch, bad touch, what's appropriate and what's inappropriate? The church I volunteer at, we do that every year at the beginning of the year. I have those kids in my care for 1 hour a week, and we do it. You have my kid for 40 hours a week, and you do nothing. I ask you to think of your children. If this happened at their school, wouldn't you be here up in arms like we are? Wouldn't you want answers? Stop hiding behind bond proposals. Stop hiding behind accusations and start doing the job that we pay you to do. Thank you.
Jennifer, and Dawn Collins is after Jennifer.
My name is Jennifer Piefko. I've lived most of my life in this community, and I graduated from Huron Valley Schools. I'm a mother of 2 children in this district. One is a kindergartner at Spring Mills. In recent weeks, I have watched as nothing is being done for victims and their families. No support, no resources. I have learned that there is no curriculum being offered to educate students or staff in our schools. 1 in 4 children will be abused by the time they are adults. 95% of this abuse is preventable. I'll let that sink in. Recently, I have spoken with Dr. Salah and the principal of Spring Mills. Dr. Salah explained that for various reasons, HVS cannot provide help. Although tonight he is stated to have done just that. This part of the conversation never occurred. How odd. Outside of a student approaching a social worker and asking for support or counsel, that is all that this district can do. But he says that he is in contact daily with Spring Mills and the counselor and would send an army of social workers if they needed. After I spoke with Ms. Bentley last Friday, she said the school doesn't have time to counsel students. Which is it? While researching resources and options in the state of Michigan, I discovered Aaron's Law, a mandate passed by Governor Snyder in 2013, which requires all public schools to implement a prevention-oriented child sexual abuse program to educate staff and students and direct them in how to proceed in situations exactly like this one. Michigan was the 6th out of 38 states to pass this law. I contacted the county after reading the mandate and was informed that because there's no funding for the law, it is unmonitored and school districts may or may not abide by it. For the record, when I spoke with Ms. Bentley on Friday, she had never even heard of the law and questioned its validity. Everything Dr. Salah has said to myself and the community thus far seems to contradict Aaron's Law. These are the leaders in our community. Is this acceptable? And I encourage each and every one of you that are listening to look it up. Find the 153-page document the task force put together after the law was passed. See what should be happening and isn't. Care House, the very same outreach service that aided Oxford School District after their tragedy a few years ago, has been offering their services. They are deeply concerned for the well-being of the victims and our community, but HVS will not allow any resources in. To make matters worse, administration is now intimidating families, demanding help for their children. And after a PTA meeting last Friday, a false allegation was made against a Spring Mills volunteer of 20 years who just spoke up here. She has been a voice for victims, and they have now banned her from the school and barred her from volunteering any further. She has raised all of her children in this district and now her grandchildren. We cannot allow the administration to intimidate and strong-arm victims and their families into being silent. The recent events, lack of accountability, and intimidation tactics have left us parents feeling uncomfortable and, quite frankly, unsafe. I have been volunteering every
confidential and public. I think I want to mention also that I applied as a substitute 2 times, once prior to Huron Valley going through their third-party program, and then since they've gone through their third-party program. Both times I was fingerprinted, my background was checked, and I went through sexual orientation in terms of reporting and what to do. So that, I think, is being done by the school. This is an ugly, ugly subject, and I understand the fear and the anger that I'm sensing. What I'd like to do is share with you some of the situations that I've worked with and comment on, without being your counselor, just as a concerned citizen, what might be appropriate resources for you to check out. Again, working with, and these youth that I'm going to mention were in the 12 to 15-year range in community mental health in another county. One miscarried, and I was in court in a closed court hearing where the parents were not allowed. It was only the legal staff and professional staff. Another youth was in detention being interviewed for other reasons, was being interviewed by the FBI for trafficking activity that they were involved in. Was a youth placed on the registry for actions that were closer to curiosity and exploration, probably because the parents didn't want to talk to their child about any sexual activity, because if they didn't say anything, they wouldn't do anything. I also saw a youth who I think should have been placed on the registry for what he did, and he was not. I've been introduced to the forensic interviewing process, which is the psychosocial interview. It's not the physical interview, but it's when a professional interviews your child to assess what level of sexual abuse might have occurred. My understanding of what I heard in last week's meeting is that the school board has done what they can. They've removed the alleged perpetrator. They are not talking about that person, which is the same thing I would expect from any employer that I ever had, that my employment situations not be talked about and his name not be mentioned.
Thank you, Dawn. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda is Sarah, followed by Beth. We're not having a conversation back and forth amongst the audience. Sarah, you have the microphone.
All
Thank
right.
you.
My name is Sarah Conant. I'm a resident of Highland. Before I read what I've prepared, I'd like to say thank you. My child is in one of those bubbles, those 6 classrooms. Thank you for hearing the student population and the class size comments. So I'm here tonight to advocate for those who are hurting in our educational community. I'm a parent at Spring Mills. I'm very involved. I love our school. I believe that those who are hurting includes our children, our families, the teachers and staff. Everyone is hurting. So I'm here because our children are watching how we respond in this moment. They need to know that the grown-ups in their lives see this and will stand up for them when the unthinkable happens. Tonight, I'm here specifically on behalf of another family who, in order to protect the privacy of their child, has asked me to read the following letter. Dear HVS School Board, I am writing you this letter to talk about the elephant in the room. Everybody's talking about it right now. It is no secret that Spring Mills has recently been in the news for allegations of every parent's worst nightmare. Unfortunately, I am the parent of one of his victims. I want to say that I don't write this to blame Spring Mills. I don't blame the school board or our principal. There is one person to blame here, and that is the perpetrator. This has been the most challenging of times for our family, and navigating it has not been easy. We have experienced a lot of emotions, but instead of blaming someone or something and react based off of those emotions, we have chosen to look to the future. Moving forward, how can we as a school better support our students and our educators? What happened to my child is their story to tell, and at this time, they only feel comfortable talking to their therapist and myself, and that's okay. What looks right for each of these victims' families may look different, but that doesn't mean that any of us are handling it wrong. I won't be speaking directly on what occurred to my child, but I will share that what happened was my child told the offender, I don't like that, and don't do that again. You see, I have raised a confident, assertive child who was taught by parents that if anyone ever makes you feel uncomfortable, you tell them your body is your body and your body only. We cannot be naive enough to think that this conversation occurs in every single HVS family home. We as a school, as a community, we have got to do better. And most importantly, we have to do our best to prevent this from ever happening again. As a parent, I am not sure exactly how this looks, but what I do know is that we must think about our kids who are at risk. Those kids whose parents don't have these conversations, they don't know to have these conversations with their children. Who then is expected to have that conversation with them? Why can't we as a school supply the students with better resources? HVS needs to consider adding this to health and safety classes at younger ages. Start by sending resources home with students so their parents can then have the conversations. In addition, we must think about training our educators so that they know what red flag behaviors to look for. I write this as a concerned parent that expects the school and community.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Sincerely, the parent of a privileged Spring Mill student that had their innocence taken from them by someone who was supposed to be.
Thank you. Beth James, followed by Richard.
Beth James, and I have 2 points that I would like to bring up because I think that everyone eloquently covered all the other things that I want to say. I've been reading through a lot of the information about you, the board, what you're here to do, what is your purpose. Several of you I voted for last year based on things that you said you stood for. And it's really, there's really no other word. Disgust is the best word for the fact that we can't have a conversation with you. The fact that we just get to sit here and say words, and you get to sit here and look concerned and then go about your merry way. When I'm reading in here, it says the board declares and hereby reaffirms its intent to A, maintain two-way communication with citizens of the district. I also have emailed all of you. Have I received an email back from one of you? No, I have not. And B, establishes policies and will make decisions on the basis of declared educational philosophy and goals. C, from the board. Act as a truly representative body for citizens in all matters related to programs and operations. The board recognizes the ultimate responsibility for public education rests with the state, but the Board of Education has been assigned specific authority through statute, and the board shall not relinquish or fail or exercise that authority. Also, in your Board of Education governance standards, you say the Board of Education governance standards. Number 2, the Board of Education governs in a manner that is dignified and worthy of public trust. We have no trust in you. You just keep telling us you're doing your own due diligence, and what are you doing? You're doing your own investigation. Where is the communication? What is the investigation? We haven't received any information. Dr. Salah, the one message that you sent in the email, you said at the end of it, as a school district, we discuss a variety of topics associated with health and safety through our health curriculum that is taught at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. In 5th grade, you talk about some health, not B4, not K through 4. And in 5th grade, you don't talk about safe and appropriate touch. You said that it will be available for everyone that needs it. Now, every single one of us has told you, and we will keep coming and telling you again, our whole school needs it. Every single child needs it. What are you going to do? Are you just going to keep telling us you're addressing it while doing nothing? When are you going to actually do something? I hope you look me in the eye, and I hope you feel disgusted for the way that you've handled this situation. And I hope that everyone's watching and can see that.
Thank you, Beth. Richard?
How you doing? My name's Richard Skalski. I had a speech prepared, but I'm beyond that at this moment. For 5 years, a predator roamed our halls. Who approved that predator? We know. Your own code of ethics, you violated. You sit here and say that you're concerned, Dr. Sala. The only concern you have is about your mask being removed. You call the parents discussing this issue concerning. It's not. What's concerning is you're concerned about the truth. That's it. In all honesty, when Bentley sent that letter out stating that there was rumors and speculation, calling basically these victims, these poor innocent children, calling them liars, what are you guys doing? Who approved this stuff? Where do you come up with your code of ethics? Where's your morals that this is correct? None of this is correct. You say you're doing something, but as the other speakers have stated, there's nothing been done. There's been no communication with any of us parents. Parents contact you. Contact them back, please. We voted you in. I think we should vote you out. I think we should. I honestly, everyone that was involved in any of this, that had knowledge and did nothing, why are you even here?
All right. Section 3, public comments. Section 4, consent agenda. We have exhibits A1, A2, and A3. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented?
Yes, I'll move that we move forward with the consent agenda as presented.
And do I have a second?
I'll support.
All right. Motion made by Member Cotter, seconded by Member Pastana. Any questions regarding the consent agenda? Seeing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
I am a yes. Mr. Dimick?
Yes.
Ms. Dodd?
Yes.
Ms. Grisomkowski?
Yes.
Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Wiseman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next, unfinished business. These are items that were brought forth at our last board meeting under new business. First one is Oakland Schools Board of Education election resolution. I'm going to turn that over to Vice President Dodd.
So every few years, we have an opportunity to elect members to the Oakland Schools Board of Education. Recently, there are 4 candidates for consideration for 2 positions. There was a candidate forum a few weeks ago. That forum was sent out. 3 of the 4 candidates participated. After review, it's the recommendation that we cast our unified vote for Carol Finkelstein and Mark Katz. Both have long-term records of public service and public education. Mark will be re-elected to the Oakland Schools Board. Carol will be a new member of the Oakland Schools Board of Education.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? In addition to that, the resolution names you to be the representative of the Huron Valley Board as it relates to whomever we bring forward, and I would be your alternate if you could not be there on, I believe, June 3rd. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I see no questions at this time. I need to have a motion to accept that recommendation.
I'll move that we accept the recommendation of Carol Finkelstein and Mark Katz to the Oakland County School Board.
And do I have a second? Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Member Dodd, seconded by Member Grisomkowski. Seeing no other comments or questions, could I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Dodd?
Yes.
Ms. Grisomkowski?
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Dimick?
Yes.
And Mr. Wiseman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next, K2 decodable book purchase, Exhibit C. Dr. Slop.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since our last meeting where we had the presentation for the board regarding the K2 decodable book purchase, we have not had any further questions. So if there are no questions this evening from the Board of Education, I don't know, Mr. Tavernier, have you had any questions? If there have been no questions. So this evening we are asking for support of the K2 decodable book purchase as presented.
Do I have is there any questions before we take a motion? Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Member Pastana, seconded by Member Ryan. Seeing no other questions or comments, could we have a roll call, please?
I am a yes. Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Grisomkowski?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
Ms. Dodd?
Yes.
Mr. Dimick?
Yes.
And Mr. Wiseman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next, CTE technology purchase, Dr. Salah.
Yes, thank you. And again, the CTE technology purchase was presented at the last board meeting. We have not had any questions, any additional questions, I should say, from the Board of Education regarding the technology purchase. So this evening, we would ask for your approval as presented.
Any questions? Do I have a motion?
Yes, I will move that we approve the CTE technology purchase as it was presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Member Cotter, seconded by Member Dodd. This is coming out of the CTE budget that we received from Oakland Schools, not out of the general fund. All right, great. All right. Yes, Member Dodd.
CTE stands for Career
Technical
Education.
Thank you. Good catch. Seeing no other questions or comments, could I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Cotter,
Yes.
Ms. Dodd,
Yes.
Ms. Ryan,
Yes.
Ms. Grisomkowski,
Yes.
Mr. Dimick.
Yes.
I am a yes. Mr. Wiseman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next is 24-25 Oakland Schools ISD budget, Exhibit E. Dr. Salah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Van Gotham presented the Oakland Schools ISD budget. The board is required to take action on this one way or the other on an annual basis, as are the remaining 27 school districts in Oakland County. I have received no additional questions from the board outside of the committee meetings. Mr. Van Gotham, have you received any questions?
No, I have not.
Okay, that being said, we would ask for the board's support of the Oakland Schools ISD budget as presented.
Any comments or questions? Yes, Amy?
So we did a bit of a deep dive on this budget in finance and operations. There were some interesting things that were brought to light. One of them, Oakland ISD is supporting districts with respect to the business office and providing training and FTE. Right now, school districts are not able to attract folks with those types of skill sets. And so many positions are going unfilled, which is very significant as there is much that the state requires a great deal of accounting as well as regulation and reporting. So this budget was a little bit different in that, and I appreciated the executive summary that Mr. Van Gotham provided, but I also appreciate the fact that there was some forward thinking on behalf of ISDs. We function well because we have, because our teachers are able to teach and our business office is able to manage the business of the district. So just wanted to bring that out to the board members who are not on finance and operations.
Any other comments? I appreciate that because we did spend a considerable amount of time going over the budget. I think Oakland Schools, as our intermediate school district, has a direct effect on opportunities for our children. In fact, about 40% of their funds that they receive basically flow back to the local school district to benefit our special ed population and also our CTE, our career technical education people. I think it's important to note that support is really monies that have flowed through Oakland Schools through the support of our entire county, and we as a local school district benefit from that. We know that we have a lot of mandated programs that are not fully funded, and the fact that we have a county-wide millage as it relates to special ed helps offset some of those costs. While we are still in a situation where we're mandated to provide opportunities which are appropriate for our special needs students, it is a drain on the general fund for all of our students, and the dollars that Oakland Schools manages and passes on to us benefits our kids directly. So I applaud that, and I think it's important to note that our superintendent, along with Mr. Van Gotham and Mr. Tavernier, spent a lot of time making certain that those opportunities for our kids that Oakland Schools provides funnels down to our local school district. So I do want to recognize that. That being said, could I have a recommendation to approve, a motion to approve the ISD budget?
Sure. I recommend that we approve the 24-25 Oakland School ISD budget as it was presented.
And do I have a second?
I'll support that.
Motion made by Member Cotter, seconded by Member Pastana. Seeing no other questions or comments, could I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Cotter,
Yes.
I am a yes. Mr. Dimick,
Yes.
Ms. Dodd,
Yes.
Ms. Grisomkowski,
Yes.
Ms. Ryan,
Yes.
and Mr. Wiseman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next on the agenda, Exhibit F, which is the Spring Mills ASD playground. This is for our autistic students that are provided a educational opportunity over at Spring Mills. So, Dr. Salah?
Yep, thank you, Mr. President. As was presented during the last board meeting, we do have an ASD population at Spring Mills Elementary School, and in order to ensure that we have playground equipment that is appropriate for our ASD students, we're asking the board to support the purchase of the ASD playground equipment. As I mentioned, this was presented at the last board meeting, and we have not had additional questions or comments. I believe all questions were answered through committees. So that being said, we're asking for approval of the Spring Mills ASD playground as presented.
Any questions? The funding source for this?
I believe this is bond 2019 bond monies.
2023 bond?
Okay.
Oh, this is 23 bond
Yeah.
Okay.
of the second series.
Second
So this is a
series.
Second
reality,
series.
it becomes a reality. It's not something coming out of the general fund. It wouldn't have been possible without the passage of the last bond issue.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I need to have a motion to accept this recommendation.
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation for the Spring Mills ASD playground.
Motion made by Member Dimick. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Ryan. There are no further questions or comments. Could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Dimick?
Yes.
Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Grisomkowski?
Yes.
Ms. Dodd?
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
And Mr. Wiseman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next is the, under new business, these are 3 items that are presented to us for the first time that, as it relates to our process, we have an opportunity to have these presented to us, provide an opportunity for us to ask any questions tonight, but also provide an opportunity for the next 2 weeks to ask any questions to the appropriate administration and for a committee to review. So first is Exhibit G, which is the board policy updates. Dr.
Yes.
Salam.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So what you have before you in Exhibit H are a number of board policies. For our listening audience, the Board of Education is required by law to adjust board policy as laws change. There are a number of changes to board policies 1240, 2410, 2414, 2418, 6350, 6520, and 8800. These policies were presented to the Executive Committee as a start. The Executive Committee did have discussions regarding these policies, and it was recommended that we take these policies forward. They, as you know, Neola is our policy writing entity. They employ attorneys on their staff, and they monitor regular changes to legislation in order to ensure that the district has policies and procedures that are compliant with the law. So this evening, we are simply presenting these policies to you. This is a first read. We would ask that the Board of Education take some time to really review and digest these changes. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly and share those thoughts or questions. And if we need to make tweaks, modifications, or changes, we certainly can do that. So with that, we will be looking for approval at the next Board of Education meeting, which is June 6th. That's it, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Next, 24-25 budget work session. Dr. Salah?
Yes, thank you. For this one, I will invite Mr. Van Gotham to the podium to provide a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Salas. So for the Board of Education, for the viewing audience in person and watching us on TV tonight, I'm presenting the 24-25 budget work session. So I think it's important to note that the budget is something that's looked at throughout the year. Obviously, we have a fiscal year that starts in July 1st and ends in June 30th of any given year. So we're currently working through the 2023-24 budget year, and we are presenting ideas for the board to consider for our 24-25 school year. which takes place in another 6 weeks or so, the start of that year. It's important to note that, as we're building this budget, there are a couple of huge factors that come into play that the board does not know when they actually take a vote. So we have our board meeting on June 10th where we'll ask the board for an approval of a budget, with most likely that being the case that they will not know our pupil count, which won't be determined till the middle of October, and our per pupil allocation, which really is determined with that budget, which again, sometimes the state of Michigan is good about passing that prior to June 30th, but in my experience, that's happened like once or twice in the last decade. So more times than not, we do not have all the information we need for a budget, but we do our best to guess on what that might look like, and that's what we present to the board on an annual basis. So tonight's is really a discussion. We're not asking the board to approve a budget. We have met with the executive and finance and operation board subcommittees, and then we'll be a couple members who haven't been a part of those committees will hear this tonight for the first time, and then we have a couple week period before we will ask the board to approve a budget for the next school year. So really with the, highlight of the overall budget, this is the general fund budget we're talking about. That's like our operations, our day-to-day, how we go about operating as a school district. We have the last 2 years audited results, and then we have the adjusted budget for 23-24, which shows that we're gonna probably end up being $2 million in expenditures over revenue. And so it's important to note that last year when we had the board approve a budget, that we knew that we were gonna, it's not on the end of that presentation, so I don't know where that, do you have that one page slide, or if you wanna pull that up real quick? So this is where we were a year ago, and we knew that a year ago, as a result of settling contracts with all of our groups, that we would be in a position where we'd be spending more money than bringing in because we had contract negotiations with all of our staff. So I think it's important to note that even a year ago, we knew that we were going to be spending money above and beyond the revenue that we'd bring in, but it was purposeful because we had new salary agreements with all of our people, and so it's important to note that even a year ago, we were projecting 10.4 and 6.0 as far as fund balance percentages. So if you want to go back to the original presentation for me, thank you. So going back to where I was before, when we're looking at the budget presentation for this upcoming school year, we are projecting right now that we would ask the board for a budget that shows expenditures over revenue of just under $4 million. And again, that's the second year of a 2-year contract that most of the bargaining units agreed to last summer after the budget was approved. So at the end of this fiscal year, we anticipate a fund balance percentage of about 13.4%. And then at the end of next school year, about 9% fund balance. And so showing you this current year what makes up the general fund revenue, local sources, it's important to note that those are primarily on the homestead property taxes, the second homes, vacation homes, businesses. They provide us with about 11.5 of that million, 14.3 million. State sources is per pupil funding, again, the stuff that we keep talking about, the amount we receive per student, and then some categoricals that are impacted by the general fund, most notably our special ed Headley obligation, which just helps the district support the work we do with some of our students with greater needs. And then interdistrict sources, again, come primarily from a PA 18 millage that runs through Oakland schools and ends up providing the district with a little over 7 million of that 7.7 million. It's important to note that we look at, so as I believe Dr. Slott and even Ms. Grisomkowski pointed out tonight, there's 3 different chambers that all separately vote on an initial budget. This is not a final budget from any of them, but this is their initial look at what they project as far as a per pupil funding amount. Again, this probably will not be determined before we ask the board to approve a final number on June 10th. But you can see the various amounts here, and then the one that Huron Valley Schools is going to use, which is $210 per pupil. And that would project to the dollar amount you see down there highlighted in green. We're looking at the historical pupil count. So again, as a result, primarily a birth rate, absent the year 2017 and 18, which was the year we introduced junior kindergarten, we're showing that we've declined ever so slightly in most of these years. Again, primarily due to birth rate, which is just the number of students being birthed and then ultimately ending up in Huron Valley schools for their education. So We are projecting a 200 student loss in the current year to go with the 210 per pupil funding. So again, when we're looking at 23-24, you can see that we're going to show about 106.4 million in revenue. Next year, we're bumping that up by about $1 million. And you can see the various categories, local, state, and interdistrict sources, with again a 200 student loss and a per pupil increase of about $210. This is the general fund expenditure categories for the various sections that make up our 23-24 general fund expenditures. You know, and so you can see some of the basic program added needs, adult and continuing ed, pupil services, instructional staff, school administration. Those are directly in the actual buildings. I know you're thinking to yourself, you know, hey, Jeffrey, what makes up central services? That sounds like a pretty cool account. Can you tell me what's in that? And I can tell you that that's human resources and technology. And so one of the other things that's on your mind probably is what's in other community services. That's got to be something interesting. And that's actually early childhood expenditures. So we have revenue support for the early childhood expenditures, but I know central services and community services was on everybody's mind tonight, so I wanted to clear the air on that. So that's the total of all the expenditures for the current school year at about $108.4 million. This is the general fund expenditures for the last year, the year that was already audited, and so this gives a breakout of those same expenses in a pie chart, again showing that most of the money is spent in the classroom and as little as possible outside the classroom, because obviously that's where we do our most important work. This is a percent of allocated expenditures. Again, this is numbers that have been audited not only for Huron Valley schools, but the rest of the state of Michigan. So we pull this data directly from the state of Michigan website. And as you can see, the Michigan state average per district and per pupil membership funding is 15 grand. Oakland Schools is slightly higher than that, and ours is the lowest of obviously all three of those comparison buckets. It's important to note the instruction expenditures. I think it's important to note too for general administration that, you know, to clear the air, that is not just Dr. Salah, it's also the Board of Education, and they pay for things like our legal expenses, our annual CPA audit fees. If we bring outside consultants in for any reason, those are also a part of that number, and then obviously the other expense categories. It's also important to note on an annual basis, we say it, but we're one of probably a handful of districts in the state of Michigan. You know, we have all of our contracts with, when you think about the big three of privatization in public schools, so maintenance and operations staff, food service and transportation, those are all actual employees of Huron Valley Schools. We do not privatize any of those groups as of now, and so when you're looking at salaries and benefits and you see that Huron Valley Schools is higher than the Oakland County and Michigan average, it's due to the fact that we have employees in those buckets, and you know, we do have our contract service number that's in there because we do have some contract service positions, and obviously supplies like fuel for our buses and tires and brakes and electricity and all those other things that are necessary to operate the schools on a daily basis. This is again a flow chart of revenues and expenses over the last 10 years, including the current one we're under, and you can see that the revenue is in blue and the expenditures are in red. Again, additional summary expenditure piece, highlighting those sections that, you know, we show from an audit perspective, and again, you have instruction, pupil services, which impacts the classrooms, instructional staff, school administration, and then some of those other buckets like central and services and community services that we highlighted tonight. So again, back to the first slide that I had presented with some of the highlights. Again, we project that we're going to have the board approve a third and fourth quarter budget adjustment of $2 million in expenditures over revenue. Again, a planned expenditure for the district, and again, asking for the 24-25 school year of just under $4 million in expenditures over revenue, which again is a planned expense as a result primarily of negotiations with all of our salary groups over the last couple of years. And that would end us with about a 9% fund balance as we move into the 24-25 school year. Again, with a couple big unknowns, such as the per pupil funding that we'll receive, that will probably most likely come, again, sometime after June 30th or relatively close to it. Whereas our group will already have a budget approved, and then obviously our student count, which really doesn't happen until at some point in October, like a couple of us have mentioned this evening already. So we do have some non-general fund budgets that we wanted to highlight real quick here, and so community services, the community and recreation education group, We are showing a slight profit in that group for the year for next year. Food service and IA West, that's obviously our food service program that provides meals. Again, the legislature, the government is still up in the air, but our sources are telling us that it's most likely that the students will again have free breakfast and lunch for next year until the state actually approves those budgets. We're going on the assumption that our revenues and expenditures will be relatively flat in that area because it's really an unknown till the state makes a decision on that. But most of those legislative groups are pretty supportive of continuing to offer free meals for our kiddos, which I love because I know that there are families in our district that all of them it benefits, but obviously those two that are even more in need than others. IA West again is our international academy held in Lakeland High School, and again we keep that at a break-even dollar amount, and so that's going to look like pretty close to $3.3 million in expenses and revenue. And then activity funds, which vary from the class of 2024 at Lakeland High School to our athletics or arts programs that have special funding that they use for sometimes second coaches or extra help in the CPA to do some of our performances, to raising money for a specific cause at one of our elementaries or our middle or our high schools. And so with that being said, I'm done with the presentation, and I'm happy to take questions from the board at this time.
Yes, Member Dodd.
Will you please go back to slide 4?
I apologize, that number is really small. Even with
It really is small. It took me a minute to see it when I was looking.
Is this the right guy?
Yeah, I want you to read the note.
Yeah, so we have federal sources that are also a part of the overall general fund revenue, but it represents about 20 grand. And so I don't have it in this number because these numbers are obviously in the millions. And so it's really just, I can't really put it, it's so small that it just doesn't really.
It is so small, and that's why our advocacy efforts with our federal lawmakers as it relates to full funding of all the things that they've set forward for special education and other areas is so important. So when I saw that, I thought, oh, look, it's part of the reason that we continue to advocate to our federal lawmakers to make sure they fully fund IDEA and some of the other programs that are really important and keep us going. We're required to do them, but unfortunately they're not funded. So just wanted to make that little note in there. The other question that I had for you, oh no, I lost it. I have to look back at my notes. I scribbled a bunch of stuff down, so anybody else can go. I'll come back.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Yes, Amy.
So I hate this process. Sorry, Jeffrey. I hate it. It is completely backwards. Nobody makes a budget like this. However, I'm kind of curious to get your input. We have a very conservative foundation increase. We have a very, I don't want to call it a conservative, but we've projected a 200 student loss. Last year we had 75, it's 73. We are conservative for a reason. Last year you were about, what, $4 or $5 off with the foundation allowance. We had other districts near us that were about $100 off. That makes a huge impact in our budget. Can you just talk through how you come to your estimates and maybe why you do this the way you do?
Sure. So real quick to Laura's comment before I move into that, I think it's important to note that, while we continue to advocate for federal funding, the federal government has done a pretty good job for us the last 4 or 5 years. I want to make sure that we mention that we have been very blessed with some additional dollars that we feel we've used in the appropriate manner to support students and especially some of the challenges that came with the last 4 or 5 years, especially throughout COVID-19. So the government has done a pretty good job of, giving Huron Valley schools in particular some additional dollars that we've used to, reduce class size and bring in additional supports, as we were able to. And so that being said, it's always nice to have an advocacy group that continues to push for additional funding for schools. As it relates to the per pupil piece, so, I rely a little bit on, the 8 years that I've had within the district and seeing trends from the legislatures and, where they are at to where they usually end up. And then I also I have a very strong team. It's a good opportunity for me to thank Heather Kerrigan, who's here tonight. She's our Director of Finance. Her finance team is really second to none. They do a really good job in the business office. It's as you can see, like $130 million business with all of our funds, and they do a pretty good job of managing the business part of that for us. So I rely on Heather and her thoughts and suggestions, as well as some of my other colleagues who share similar positions to me as business officials. We do twice a year here from the state of Michigan through the revenue estimating conference, the consensus revenue estimating conference is what they call it. And so we rely on that information and make sure that the trends for revenue, if they're going up or down, are, staying on the right track, if you will. And then really the last couple of years I have not been providing per pupil that is any greater than one of the three chambers, meaning we had 217, I think 241 and something a little over 300. It's just important that, as we're looking to TLT and the resources we need to provide to John and his team, which some of them are here tonight, as well as our other buildings, that when we're looking at the budget, we have to be able to afford those things, because, I would never want to be in a position where I'm coming back to you and saying, okay, we were off like 7 million or 10 million or 20 million. I mean, again, that would impact what we do in the schools. And so this is fairly conservative. I'm really hopeful that we'll be higher than that. And again, I'm okay with being wrong 50 or 70 if it's in the right direction. So using that as a background, and then obviously even Dr. Salah, Mr. Wiseman had experience as a public service person for many a year, and so I have a really strong support system around me. And then obviously we do a lot of conversation too. So I was able to go to exec committee, and Denise Pastana has served as our treasurer, and she has several years on the board. And so, I'm always asking too, if there's some way that you feel that we're off, this is open. The board ultimately approves this budget. I merely provide information, and really it's not fact, because we don't know what will happen until they ultimately approve it. So all of that together is what you see when you look at the number that you have in front of you.
Any other comments, questions? Nothing? Oh, you found it.
I found it, yeah. So one of the things that is also happening concurrently with this is the Michigan Public School Education Retirement Service reinvestment stuff that's happening. So every year we get money from the state of Michigan that we then pay into the retirement savings pool. That's been going well, and now we are able to reduce the amount of money that we need to pay in. I know that the Michigan Association of School Boards has encouraged us to advocate to keep that money coming to the district, which could impact about $450 per pupil investment in our classrooms. So I guess my question to you is, have we included any of that thought process in our budgeting? And if we haven't, what do you think the likelihood is that could happen? Are you hearing anything?
So I have about $250,000 in new monies that are not per pupil, because on an annual basis, again, when you look at things that are not per pupil, we've averaged well above that. I do not have any of the $450 in consideration, because again, while that has strong support, and I know that there were a host of state-specific organizations such as the Michigan School Business Officials, which I'm a part of, obviously the MASB, which is what you guys are a part of as a school board. Paul's a part of the superintendent's group. I mean, there's a bunch of those groups. My co-team is all part of a state association of some sort of another. And so the MEA and I think ATF, the teacher piece, they're all advocating. I had a good conversation with Ms. Hollander today talking about that specific thing. I'm hopeful, as I always have been when the state's doing their budget decisions, that they're thinking about K-12, because if that money does not go into K-12, most likely it will be like really early preschool and then community college, which again will ultimately impact students, but we're K-12 focused. So obviously if there's an opportunity for the amount of money that we've been providing and funding to reduce the overall pension benefit costs, and that could go back into per pupil, that could just do wonderful things for the district and for the students most importantly. So I'm hopeful, as I always am with this group, and and a lot of times the state has done right by the district in the last 8 years, so I'm hopeful that they'll continue that path.
Anything else? Amy, you're absolutely right. I always, finance is both a science and an art. And school finance is an art in many ways because the two biggest revenue streams that we have are the number of students that we have in our classrooms or in our buildings and the amount of money we get for each of those students. And here's Jeffrey and Heather and the rest of the staff building a budget in the millions of dollars where a significant amount of those dollars we don't even know. So you have to base it on past projections, past realities, and kind of do a crystal ball, because obviously it has a direct effect on whatever this budget is on the offerings that we provide for students in 24-25, when we really don't know exactly how much we're going to get or how many students we're going to have. And it's extraordinarily important because we're in the business of attracting and retaining staff too. And I think one of the things that really this budget really focuses on is retaining and attracting staff. And nowhere's in this conversation are we talking about the potential layoffs of any staff. In fact, I saw something from HR today about reasonable insurance. So it's important to note that while other districts might be facing some issues, we're not. And I think that's a reflection of our finance group doing the job that they need to do, and at the same time budgeting so that we can attract and retain staff, providing facilities that support our students, and provide the compensation that is competitive. So it's extraordinarily important. The only other comment that I have is I really appreciate and respect Dr. Salah's comments as it relates to what the parameters are within the contract and what our negotiated contractual sizes are, but at the same time recognizing how much time and energy we all focus as a Board of Education as it relates to the number of students that we have in the classroom, because obviously the composition of those classrooms have a direct effect on opportunities for kids. And this budget is a living, breathing document that really shows what our priorities are. And our priorities, as you stated, exceed what the averages are as it relates to salaries and benefits. And our biggest group is obviously our professional staff. And the other point of pride is they're ours, and we want to continue doing that. And I think it's important to note that while we have these class sizes, we're also taking a look at one year after the next to make certain that we're doing things that are appropriate, and that just because of the date that you were born doesn't mean that you're always in that larger class size. But I think it's also interesting to note, because I know that you provide all of us this information, back in 22-23, on average, in our elementary school, our class sizes were 24.1. 23-24, they're about the same, 24.3. What we're projecting right now, and that's going to go down a little bit based on what we're talking about as it relates to a few classrooms. Right now, we're at 23.9. So you can see that our class sizes are competitive, and they've actually gone down a little bit in elementary. And we continue to focus now on 6-12, where the class load, I'm correct, is like 164. So 164 is the number of students that a teacher has in front of them during the course of the day in grades 6 through 12. So I applaud the work of our administration. If there are no other comments, we'll have this for the next 2 weeks. I know that we've talked about this and I know we've talked about it in great detail in finance and operations, and I know this has a direct effect on teaching and learning, and it really goes across all four, because as you talked about, Member Dodd, legislatively, how we need to be at the forefront to get some of these programs fully funded, because if they aren't fully funded, we still have to provide them, and it comes out of the general fund, which then reduces our ability to offer programming for other students. So it's important to note. So we have this for 2 weeks. We'll have opportunities to have conversations in our committees. We'll have opportunities to talk to John and Jeffrey and Dr. Salah about this. So nice job. You even brought a little humor into it.
it's hard to be funny with a budget, I get it, but, you know, it's a pretty dry topic, so every now and then you try to throw a couple zingers in there. I know central services isn't really probably the drop the mic kind of comment you
Yeah.
do in a board meeting, but trying to work with what I got here. So
Yeah.
again, thank you to my team for putting this together. You know, I talked about Heather and her team, and also my assistant, Ms. Marushkin, who kind of pulls this all together for us. Everybody does a really good job, and, you know, really
Appreciate
proud to work with them and what they do. So thank you.
It's important work. It's very important work, and it really gives us the ability to provide programming for our students and support, which is why we're here. Next is 3-5 word study purchase.
Thank you. For this one, I'll turn it over to Mr. Taverner.
So real quick, without taking thunder away from the team that's presenting tonight, at the last board meeting, you heard about the K2 decodable books, and earlier in this meeting, you approved the purchase of those materials. The district has received a little over $1 million in grant funds from the state for early literacy professional development and curriculum materials for students. So tonight, you're going to hear about the 3-5 word study programs. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lindberg, our Director of Curriculum Development.
Thank you, Mr. Tavernier, and thank you to the board for having us here tonight. This is the third time we've spoken about literacy with you in the last 4 or 5 months, and like Mr. Tavernier just mentioned, we came before you at the last meeting, talked about K2 decodables. Tonight we're going to talk to you about grades 3 through 5, our word study, and a purchase we're looking to make to support those grade levels. And just like the decodables at the last meeting, this purchase will also be under the early literacy grant that we had shared with you last time. Remember, that was about a $1.1 million grant. And this isn't money that we can just spend freely. This is money that has specific compliance requirements. And so those are listed up there. But again, those are things that we will meet as a district to receive these fundings, and like just like we purchased the K2 decodables, that we'll be able to purchase the 3-5 word study materials tonight. So again, I've brought along Kristen Chastain and Kathleen Miska, one, because they're dynamic, and two, because they've really drove the work here with our elementary teachers and with our EIS coaches, our lit coaches at the elementary level, and have facilitated that work throughout the year, and really provided and can really provide a lot of the details with that work. But just really quickly before I turn it over to Kristen, just if you look, again, this was something that we had shared at our last meeting, the same budget, or the same, sorry, budget. Jeffrey, you got me thinking about budget. But we shared this slide with you at the last meeting, and the column about K2 phonics was what we highlighted. This is, again, just moving one column over, looking at the 3-5 word study pilot. You'll see that we did a field test or actually a pilot in the fall with Morphine Magic, and then we did a pilot in the winter with spelography. And I won't go into more detail because I'll leave it to Kristen and Kathleen to share in detail. But just so you know, this has been a huge process and will continue to be a huge process as we look at this global review over the coming years.
Hello, everyone. Today we're here to talk a little bit about word study, like Martin mentioned, and recognizing that word study is the study of reading and writing and all those skills that come together. And it's not limited to, but includes investigating and understanding patterns in words, building word knowledge that can be applied to both reading and spelling, like I mentioned. And it supports students' abilities in phonics, word recognition, and vocabulary. So, using research to help anchor our work, we understand that to become a skilled reader, there are some processes that need to be in place, including those processes under language comprehension, as well as word recognition, and word study does apply to many of those elements that are listed in both of those areas. An even more detailed view of that kind of reading rope is the active view of reading, where we know we have our YouFly Foundations, our phonics resource that's really supporting the word recognition at the K2 level. But that word study really touches a lot of those different areas involved with becoming a skilled reader. And you can see all those lines going off to all those key places that word study skills really do build our students' reading and writing capacity. So to help drive and lead this work, we have a committee of teachers that have been working all year together. 11 committee members made up of literacy coaches, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers, as well as additional teachers that participated in the pilot of both of the different word study resources. Often they were other members of a PLC, so we'd have a committee member as well as the members of their PLC that could participate in the pilot work. Starting with Morpheme Magic, like Martin mentioned, this fall, teachers were trained and then they spent time diving into lessons, executing units, and then at the end they were able to come back together. We used rubrics to take notes and reflect on how the instruction went in class. We brought our committee back together in January to prepare them for their second pilot of spellography. And following the same approach, they were able to teach units and then came back together this spring to reflect on how their instruction went, use those same rubrics to reflect on how the two different resources worked in class. Ultimately, the committee both identified some drawbacks of each resource, some benefits that they wanted to highlight, and decided to recommend moving forward with a resource called Spellography. So that's looking towards next school year, 24-25. We're hoping to have a field test of this resource in grades 3 through 5. So you can see the graphics up there. I know Kathleen has some books that we're gonna pass up around for you to look at, and let's learn a little bit more about Spellography.
As Kristen mentioned, one of the reasons that we're super excited about Spellography coming out of our pilot and into our field test is the authorship. This is a resource developed by Louisa Moats and Bruce Rossow, both of whom are leaders in the letters training, as well that so many of our educators have participated in as we've learned and grown more in our understanding of the science of reading. So we're very excited that this resource has really elevated above the other. You'll see that there are 4 different books within this resource, the last of which will be released this fall. And having seen and worked with the first 2 books and understood the third as it's being released this spring, we're very excited to dive deeper into a field test across grades 3 through 5. One of the things that drew the committee to Spellography is its theory and design. Instead of focusing only on a single layer or a single strand of reading comprehension or language comprehension or word recognition, the real strength of Spellography is that it uses what they refer to as the language layer cake to show how components of language work together to build understanding and meaning. So it begins with phonology, that base layer, the correlation between sound and graphemes and meaning, and then into orthography, how we write and articulate those sounds and spoken words, and then into morphology, the base units of meaning within our language. For example, that the prefix pre means before, right? And then taking those letter and sound combinations and working them into syntax or sentence structures, how we actually communicate big ideas and concepts. And so this program works with all of these layers to help our students better understand the relationship between sounds and systems within our language. Each of these 4 books contains 6 units with 6 lessons each. A single book comprises 12 to 16 weeks of instruction if we're using the recommended 30 minutes 3 times per week. But what is great about this resource is that this is also flexible. A lot of those lessons are broken down into some smaller pieces so that teachers can use this as a supplement where it fits and works within their literacy block. I have 2, unfortunately, very small images for you up on the screen that show how these different layers of the language layer cake work together within Spellography to help students understand how language works. You can see on the left-hand side that is our very first unit in the whole series of Book A. And you can see that each column represents one of the 4 layers of the layer cake. And early in the sequence, you see that a lesson maybe touches 1 or 2 of the layers as students start to become acclimated, moving out of our UFly Foundations resource into a more comprehensive word study resource. And the image on the right is the first unit of the third book, Book C, where we really see the complexity of different language patterns really being broken down. For example, how the sound aw is represented by a number of different spelling patterns in English, one of which, AU, comes to us from Latin and Greek. And when we think about and better understand how odd, for example, from Latin relates to hearing, or auto from Greek relates to certain matters of, I'm going to now use the word in its own definition of automaticity or remoteness, that students start to see how these relationships in language work and build their understanding that allows them to be more natural and skilled readers. As our committees worked through our coming field test and planning for our field test, they elected to part certain books out by grade level. In grade 3, our third grade field test participants will use parts of our UFly sequence in the first semester of third grade. Because UFly was a wonderful success this year in our large-scale field test, we want to continue to move from that into this next year. Some students will have only had UFly as second graders because of our field test this year, and so we know that they may benefit from a little bit more time with this resource in first semester. And the way that the UFly lessons are built, we can kind of engage in some recursivity that allows us to extend that all the way up across. And this is a resource that we've already purchased with grant funds for all of our K-5 teachers, so this is an investment we've already made. Then they would move in semester 2 into Book A of spellography, so that students start to get exposed to these wider ranges of linguistic skill. In 4th grade, they would use books B and C, moving forward in that sequence, and they would still have UFly Foundations available as support for individuals or small groups as needed. And in 5th grade, they would use Book C in semester 1 and Book D in semester 2 to complete this spellography sequence. And again, that UFly Foundations would still be available for teachers to use for individuals or small groups as needed. Book D is being released this fall, so that's also an advantage of beginning with Book C in semester 1, as it buys us a little time for that release and purchase to take place later this fall. Obviously, with both 4th and 5th grades using Book C, that's something that if we move out of field test into wider implementation would have to shift in future years. But right now we feel very strongly that giving students in both grade levels access to this information would be very beneficial to them. So we're excited to give students as much access to the knowledge that's within spellography as possible. It's also important for us to note that as we've been engaging in our global core review for literacy, as Marty mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, we've decided to move forward in seeking a new comprehensive K-5 reading and writing curriculum. What spellography does, that's really important for us, is gives us an opportunity to dive deep into this knowledge and learning for students in these 2 years that it will take us to work through that adoption timeline to get to full implementation. What's even better is that while it'll see its heaviest use, whole class, in these 2 years before we adopt a new comprehensive curriculum that has a lot of word study embedded in it, as most of the most current programs do, that this will still serve a very meaningful purpose for us as a supplement moving forward. And so students they'll have the opportunity to get kind of a double dose of word study knowledge and information through this resource that teachers have the time over these 2 years to learn and better understand and deepen their own knowledge of this, of linguistics, essentially, before we get to that new implementation of a full curriculum. So it will live on as a Tier 2 support, a very defined and supported Tier 2 support beyond this phase.
Thanks, Kathleen and Kristen. The excitement that you've seen when the teachers are working with this, and the excitement knowing that some resources are coming to an area that they've felt has needed additional supports, has been exciting to witness and to hear when you go in and you see Kathleen and Kristen working with the teachers. You see them talking with the lit coaches. And so there's genuine excitement around the district. And you heard that from the teacher last time that came forward to talk about decodables. It's the same thing with spellography. So what we're asking is it again to consider the purchase of spellography for our grades 3 through 5 students. The detailed information is up there, including teacher manuals, student lesson books that you looked at, along with professional learning support for our teachers. And again, this is coming from the early literacy grant that the K2 decodables were purchased with as well. So again, thank you for hearing us tonight, and if there's any questions.
Questions? Yes, Lindsay?
No question. Just a comment, but in our last TLT meeting, they presented this to us, and I think we were all very impressed, not only with the program, but how it's been field tested. So that would be my recommendation to the rest of our board. It's going to be a nice move forward.
Laura?
I know when we had a meeting with some educators a couple weeks ago, they really couldn't say enough good things about UFly. So I think moving from that onto this makes a lot of sense. I have an elementary age child who struggles with spelling. And the list of words, and they're doing the test on the list of words on Friday, isn't working for her. So I'm excited to see this more science-based approach to really teaching the logic behind, because I think there's a lot of kids that instead of the memorizing the spelling, learning the logic behind will be a big help. So fascinating. I could have looked through that book, but I knew I needed to listen too. So thank you for the presentation.
Denise?
Well, I was just going to say, remember at the last meeting how excited you were about that? I told you were going to be excited about this presentation too. Yep, they keep bringing it. Good job.
Yes, Amy?
Sorry, this is my favorite topic. So quick question, with respect, these books look amazing. This is exactly what we need. I'm like, there's digraphs, there's root words, okay, this is all it in a box of chocolates. I'm loving this. How much time and effort and what's it going to take for our teachers to embrace these new materials? I know that many of them have completed the letters. I don't know if it's a certification. I know there's a lot of the science of reading. I know they are doing a great deal of training on their own time because they see the need for this, and then we're providing some additional. How much time do you think this is going to? How much time do you think this is going to take for them to get up to speed and to be able to use these resources the way you would like to see them use it?
One thing that our pilot teachers shared was that it was very easy for them to actually pick up the manual and kind of begin there. Just like UFly is a very educator and educating resource, so is spellography. When we met with our pilot team in January to train for this 10-week period, the publisher actually did not have any training on the resource available. So Kristen and I put on our best linguistics hats and using some resources available from the author, Louisa Moats, her speech to print guide, and what was in the manuals, kind of worked out the ways that we could best figure out how to support our teachers in this resource. And that between that and the very explicitness of the lesson materials and the teacher manuals, that our pilot teachers still felt like this was manageable for them to pick up mid-year. Like the second pilot in a year is always the hardest one, because the first one we're still fresh, it's fall, we're excited. The second one we're in January and we're slogging through winter. So that they still felt that this was manageable is great. There is now official training through the publisher available to us, and that will also be funded by the grant. But likely we'll break that up over a couple of different PL sessions, but we've also budgeted for subs for that PL within the grant funds as well. So if we need to go that route, then that gives us some options. We should be able to get teachers close enough to up and running at the beginning of the school year so that that first semester start point, especially for 4th and 5th grade, feels plausible. The point of a field test, of course, is to iron out those kinks. So I think we feel pretty good about getting folks on board. I think a challenge may be knowing that we're working toward a new comprehensive curriculum, pulling all of us into the fold here as well.
Any other comments, questions? I have a question. And I think it kind of goes along with what Amy was talking about. But in the three-boxer, it says, at the completion of the pilot, committee members recommended what you're recommending here. And then it says the district is recommending the purchase, in that the coaches conducted a 2 pilot and determined that this resource was appropriate. But now you're going into a large-scale field test. Help me understand. You're going from a pilot, and how many teachers were involved there? How many are in the large field test?
Yeah.
And how many teachers are not part of either one of them? And from what I'm seeing your flow chart, this large field test will go for 2 years, phase 1 and 2, if I'm reading that right, and then it'll be full implementation in the phase 3, 26, 27. So can you explain that?
Yeah,
to me,
I can
please?
help you. I can help you out there.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So following our process, knowing that we're trying to fill a gap that we didn't, unlike UFly where we had teachers trying that,
Right.
that resource out under the guidance of their lit coaches, that was kind of like the field test. So, or the pilot, I'm sorry. So in this case, we had 2 resources that scored really high on our initial rubrics that we wanted to learn more about. And when you take that smaller approach, you want a smaller committee investigating both of those so that they can lead us to this moment where we're making a recommendation to expand to a field test where we would take anyone, 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade, who wanted to be a part of this next phase of the work. So it's not going to be years out. We'll offer it out to anyone next year who wants to jump on board. So we'll have the materials on hand, the training available, and we're hoping that it's as wide as our UFly field test was, so that we're then better poised to then move into full adoption of the resource moving forward. So we would just be looking for a recommendation from our field test group.
Okay, so you started off with a pilot.
Pilot of
Took
a couple
look
resources.
At 2 different types of resources.
Yeah.
The pilot recommends this.
Yes.
Now you're in the next stage as it relates to the field testing.
Yep, exactly.
And that field testing is available for any 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade teacher
Exactly.
that wants it.
Yep, that wants to jump on board, have the resources and have the training.
Well, when does, now resources and training, we
Yep.
find that it works.
Yeah.
What if I'm a teacher says, I don't want to be involved in this? When does it, hey, you don't have a choice?
Yeah, so that would come next year. So we would start the year offering the field test, and then after gathering data through implementation of that field test, we would then get a recommendation from the committee for full implementation to all. And that's when all teachers who hadn't jumped on board yet would then get their training and be moved to implementation.
So what is the school year that everyone, if it goes through as?
We
as
would have the
described?
recommendation by this time next year.
So for
One,
25,
26
26,
school year.
I would see that as if I had a child in 3rd,
Yes.
4th, or 5th grade.
Yes.
You helped me. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Seeing none, once again, outstanding. We'll have this for the next 2 weeks to review, and as always, if you have any questions, please ask them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next on our agenda, I did have a request, and I'm going to read the policy, or our practice. As I said, during public comments, individuals have to fill out a form. We had, I believe, 10 people that filled out that form, and you're allowed up to 3 minutes at the appropriate time in the meeting agenda. I moved everything up to that. The other piece is, an individual may not transfer unused time to another speaker and may only speak once. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. All right? Thank you. Next on the agenda, I gotta get back to my, is other comments from the board or from the superintendent. Does anybody have any comments as we get towards the end of the meeting? Yes, Laura?
Just congratulations to our graduating seniors. Enjoy this last week and spend the time to really soak it up, because next time they walk back in these halls, it's going to be a little bit different. It's a great time of year. I've been warming up my clapper so we can do all the clapping we need to do in the next few weeks, but it really is a great time to celebrate a great group of kids. I know we have 2 graduating seniors whose parents are here, so hopefully these kiddos will be kind to their parents and also appreciate the work that they've done to help get them this far. Secondly, I just want to thank Ms. Hollander for pointing out the successes of the arts program that we've done this year with the teacher leader in the arts. I've heard great feedback about it, so it was nice for her to share that with us today. We have outstanding arts in the Valley, and I think this is just a way of amplifying that and putting a nice support system behind it.
Mr. President, do you mind if I make a couple comments?
After I'm done with the board.
Okay. Okay.
Lindsay?
Thank you, Tom. I just want to piggyback on what you talked about, our bus rodeo over the weekend. And indeed, Huron Valley did take the top 3 places. Congratulations, and people listening can identify their bus driver, but Nicole Ostrander took first, Danny Nedwash took second, Jerry Sadler took 3rd place, and that was the whole first place team. But I just wanted to add a little context to this. These bus drivers go through 11 different pieces on a track, it's all set up for them. And if you can imagine one of our school buses trying to parallel park in downtown Milford, that is one of the stations our bus drivers have to do, and watching them do it, and they go and measure up to the inch. So, this is quite an honor that Huron Valley bus drivers have taken this now for 3 years in a row. It was a wonderful event, and I think everybody had a good time. Yeah.
Right, thank you. I drive around for a long time in Milford to find a spot that I don't have to parallel park. Any other comments? I too just am amazed by our graduating seniors. I've had the pleasure of working with a number of our Milford young men, and they are so excited about this week and graduating. It's amazing. This is the group, I always bring it back, this is the group that actually started in their basements, their bedrooms, their living rooms, with COVID, and we had the pleasure, a few of us today, to talk to some of the graduating seniors in leadership, and the perspective that they gave us was just absolutely incredible. And every time I talk to these, I feel really good about our future. I really do. Great thinkers. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Slaw now.
Finally. Thank you. Just a couple more comments this evening, specifically in reference to some of the public comment that we heard. First of all, I want to just thank everyone who made public comment. I think it's an important part of the process, part of governance, part of government, for people to have an opportunity to share their voice. But I also think it's important for me to clarify some of the things that, from my perspective, I didn't think were completely factually accurate. So I want to be really clear for the record, for everybody out there in the listening audience, so that this is, video recorded, that anybody who wants to go back and watch it can watch it. I just want to be clear regarding a few things. First and foremost, I've met with the Spring Mill staff on 2 different occasions, and I can say with confidence that they care deeply, very, very deeply, including Ms. Bentley, who I speak with on a daily basis. I can say with confidence to the entire community and the listening audience that I have the utmost respect for the time, energy, effort, and thoughts that they put into ensuring a safe environment for kids. And that is the only thing that is on their minds right now. So I just want to thank that entire team. Secondly, I think it's important to speak to this notion of support and help. Because it's not just a matter of sending somebody classroom to classroom, because we serve over 400 children in that building. And I have the greatest respect for parents, because I'm a parent. And I know that the context of every situation is critical to parenting and making decisions that are right for your family and for your children. I have 3 children. My strategy and approach with my oldest is actually different than my middle, and even different with my youngest. What works for one doesn't work for all. So going classroom to classroom and having these large conversations regarding very complicated matters would not be appropriate. I will tell you that our staff are triaging every day. We are not going to impose something on every child that a parent does not want. So we want to be conscientious of that. I have been in contact with our student services department. I have been in contact with the social worker in that building. I have been in contact with the principal in that building. And we have social work support. We will continue to provide social work support, and we will add it if it is needed. I'm saying this publicly for the record, for our listening audience and our community. Anybody that needs to speak with a social worker or needs support, we will 100% provide it. We'll provide what our children need. 100% commitment to do that.
So any little girl could walk up to Mrs. Eddington and
Do you-
say, I need to talk to you.
Go ahead, Dr. Salah.
It is not reported.
Thank you.
That little girl did talk to her.
We don't entertain in public comments again. Go ahead, Dr. Salah, you have the microphone.
Thank you. What I'm saying is any child that needs support will get it. So I'm also saying that we are committed to providing additional social work support in addition to the social worker that is presently in the building as needed. We are also committed to providing additional administrative support if needed. What the listening audience needs to know and understand is that these issues are complicated. There is a lot of privacy that needs to be considered, and that we are working hand in glove with local law enforcement, and we are also doing our own internal investigation. I know everybody wants to know everything. Please
let
don't
Dr. Salah
speak out
finish.
from the audience. Please allow me an opportunity. Thank you. Appreciate it. We are conducting our own internal investigations through our Human Resources Department and others to ensure that the policies and procedures that have been adopted by this Board of Education are executed and followed. And I can assure you, if there's something amiss or awry, of course we're going to take every single piece of information into consideration and handle it appropriately. But that doesn't mean that we are going to broadcast to everybody every single nuance of what's happening internally, because that wouldn't be appropriate if you understood employment relations laws. So please give us an opportunity to work with law enforcement to find out what we don't know, and please allow us to do our own internal investigations so that we can handle these proceedings with the utmost sincerity and cautiousness. Finally, with respect to curriculum, the district follows the Michigan Model for Health. The Michigan Model for Health is taught at all levels, elementary and secondary. The information regarding the Michigan Model for Health has several aspects. I mean, it includes situations such as, what are some examples of good touch, bad touch? That is something taught at the kindergarten level. That's one of the standards that's taught at the kindergarten level. grade 1, I'm just lifting some of these. How can a young person stay safe around strangers and bullies? That's another example. It covers the gamut from a variety of different topics related to safety and health. I asked for this specifically because of the questions we were getting. Again, part of the internal review process. You can choose to accept that and hear what I'm saying in an effort to really try and speak with clarity, or you can reject it. That's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. But I just want to be clear with those who are watching this at home, those that are here in the audience, that the Huron Valley Schools takes any allegations related to our children with the utmost strictness and severity, and our kids are 100% our focus. So with that, Mr. President, I just wanted to correct some of those comments and be clear for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Anyone else have any